for sure I'm ready, but I'll give it my best.
Nicole, okay, we are. Are we recording?
Yes, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you. I just see live. I didn't see recording. Thank you. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our special board meeting called by the Governor's Natural Resource Office to discuss the first time recruitment for this particular agency. So I really appreciate the Governor's Office looping in the board for some input. And I just need to remind you, this is a 1 hour, very quick meeting. So I want to make sure that everybody is heard today. So with that, I am going to pass the next agenda item off to Liza Jane, which is public comment.
Barbara, did you want to have people introduce themselves quickly?
I think that's probably a really good idea. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll start with me, Barbara Boyer, co-chair, representing the State Board of Agriculture. Liza Jane.
Liza Jane McAllister. I'm a rancher from Wallowa County. I serve as a co-chair on OWEB and represent the public as large as a voting member. Where we go? Kelly.
Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Coates. I'm the Director of Natural Resources for the Cow Creek Band of Umpqua Tribe of Indians, and I am the tribal representative on the OWEB board.
So Kelly, so everybody who the next person who introduces themselves and gets the next one, please.
Got it. Lindsay.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Lindsay McCleary. I am a public at-large voting member on the OWEB board. I live in West Salem and I work for the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, and I will pass it to Mark.
Did you say Mark?
She did.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Mark.
So Mark Webb. Good to see you,
Thanks,
Jeff.
Lindsay.
I'm with EQC, and I don't know who's gone. Have you gone, Jamie? I'm looking at you in the corner.
Not yet. Thank you. Jamie McLeod
Okay.
Skinner, public member at large, voting member, also the co-chair of the Water and Climate Committee. And I'll pass on to my fellow co-chair, sister co-chair, Bruce Buckmaster.
Bruce, you're on mute. No, we still can't hear you, Bruce. Okay. Bruce Buckmaster, member, public at large. And then I will go to Mark Labhart, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, Jeff. There's two Marks on the in the commission. So Mark Labhart, I have the privilege of serving on the OWEB as the ODF&W Commissioner, Living Sisters. And of course, you got a little bit of snow too when you were at Black Butte. Still here in Sisters. Glad to have you on.
Stephen?
Go to Steve.
Steve, good afternoon. Steve Brandt, Fisheries Professor at Oregon State and representing Oregon State University Extension on the board.
Okay.
Meg?
Thank you. Meg Reeves. I live in Corvallis, and I'm the Water Resources Commission rep on the board. Hi, Jack.
Hi, Meg.
Chris Allen, please.
Thanks, Barbara. Good afternoon, board and staff, and Jeff. My name is Chris Allen. I'm an ex officio member on the board representing the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And I'll go ahead and pass it to Eric Williams.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, everybody. Eric Williams, Restoration Grant Program Manager at OWEB. And I'll pass it to Courtney.
Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Courtney Schaff, the Monitoring and Reporting Program Manager at OWEB. And I think Liz is our last board member that hasn't gone yet. Liz?
Right.
Okay. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm down here in Medford, Oregon, in the beautiful Rogue Valley. And I am a voting board member and the liaison from the Board of Forestry. And did we do Eric Hartstein yet?
No, thanks, Liz.
Okay.
Afternoon, everyone. Eric Hartstein, Senior Policy Coordinator at OWEB staff. And I will toss it over to Renee.
Good afternoon, everyone. Renee Davis, Acquisitions and Special Programs Manager at OWEB. We'll go to Linda next.
Hello, this is Linda Replinger. I'm the publication specialist with OWEB and co-chairing the meeting, or co-facilitating, excuse me, the meeting with Nicole.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Bettinardi. I am the OWEB board liaison and exec assistant. And I think that we got everyone, so I'll pass it back to our co-chairs.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Liza Jane.
Oh, hi, everybody. So we're starting right off with one of the most important things we do, which is our public testimony. We did receive a letter from the Coalition of Land Trusts, COLT, and appreciate your comments about OWEB and our relationship and what you're hoping for as we move forward. I can see the attendees. If there's anybody that would like to speak, I see Andrea Craner from OECD. We'd love to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Andrea Kreiner, and I am the Executive Director of the Oregon Association of Conservation Districts. Soil and water conservation districts are engaged with just about every, if not every, OWEB grant offering. And in addition, OECD has developed an excellent partnership relationship with the past director and current interim director at OWEB. And given the importance of OWEB to the districts and of OACD's relationship with the director, I want to offer our help wherever in the recruitment process it would be helpful. So thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. For our attendees, you can raise your hand with the, your computer button. And I can see that. If there's anything that you'd like to add in this section for us here. All right. I have NFJDWC. Please.
I'm wondering, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, OWEB board. I think it's afternoon. I am calling from Iowa, so I think afternoon. Yep. My name's Kristen Walls. I'm the executive director at the North Fork John Day Watershed Council, and I also serve as the chair of the network of Oregon Watershed Council Board. So for NOWC. As most of you know, and I'm following up on Andrea, as most of you know, the network partners with OECD, the Oregon Association of Conservation Districts, Coalition of Oregon Land Trust, COLT, and OCEAN, Oregon Conservation Education Assistance Network. And collectively, we make up the Oregon Conservation Partnership. So together we represent 132 organizations working statewide to protect and conserve Oregon's natural resources. I think most, if not all of our members are probably current grantees or have been in the past. So that's all to say the priorities, the direction, and the focus of OWEB leadership directly impacts the Oregon Conservation Partnership and our individual members. So I'm here on the behalf of the partnership to just let you know that we are interested in and we are listening in on the process of hiring a new ED. And we want to also express our willingness and willingness to advise or to engage in the process as the OWEB board sees fit. So just want to say thank you for your continued support of the partnership, and thanks for letting us listen in today.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us from Iowa.
Yeah, I'm calling from my natal river, which is the Mississippi. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joe, did you have your hand up?
Indeed, I do, Lindsay Jane. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Joe Mall. I head up the Mackenzie River Trust. I've been here for 19 years now and was on the founding board of Colt, still somewhat active in Colt. And I think everyone is aware that Kelly Beamer is now at the East Multnomah Soil and Water Conservation District. So Colt's in the middle of seeking an executive director as well. I quite frankly didn't see the letter that Colt put in, but given the experience that we have had over the years with OWEB, there are a few things that I wanted to ask folks to consider. It feels a little bit awkward going before your discussion, but that's great. And I'll also note that I sit on the Oregon Water Resources Commission. And so some of my perspective actually comes from that experience as well. I've got 5 things. One, it might be tempting to have an administrator come in, but I think given OWEB's portfolios, I think it's really important that you have someone who's really familiar with not only the strategies, but the realities of land and water conservation in Oregon. Having that pragmatic, practical experience, I think, is going to be really important for this next director. At the same time, I think you want someone who's had either experience with working with DOJ or with a similar legal advisory group. Because I get the sense sometimes that DOJ is looked upon as sort of the God voice, thou must, thou shalt, when in fact, I think DOJ has just been wonderful for us at OWRD and just in terms of helping us weigh risk and then make decisions based on that. So that experience, I think, will be important. I think that your climate and water committee and Maida's recent service as the lead on the 100-year water vision is really important to have somebody, an example of having someone that can really work in a network across agencies. And I know that that can be difficult in this state, but really working cross agency is just critical, especially in the water board going forward. So would encourage that. And then, it goes without saying, someone who has courage in the face of a very challenging legislative situation. I don't envy anyone in an agency director's role right now, given the challenging legislative environment we have. And then finally, just someone who is just very comfortable with uncertainty. Again, the water world and the climate world, especially, those are 2 areas where I think I do believe there's a culture within OWEB that tries to make sure that things are going to be okay with grant awards and expectations and desired future conditions. And I think that really is hard operationally for granting partners and for OWEB staff themselves sometimes, because we all run into so much uncertainty. So 5 points. Appreciate the opportunity to be a part of the discussion, and thank you all for your service on the board.
Thank you, Joe. I want you to know that we were intentional to put our public comments ahead of us because that's a value we hold for them. And so we appreciate you joining us and all the work you do. So thank you. Peggy, can we hear from you?
Good afternoon. Peggy Lynch with the League of Women Voters of Oregon. Thank you for this opportunity. I just wanted to recognize a couple of things you have heard from your important partners. And that certainly will be a link that you have to consider as you select someone to be the new OWEB director. Those relationships are absolutely critical to Oregon. But the other thing I wanted to recognize was the fact that your former director realized the need for OWEB to have additional monies if new programs are added to its responsibilities. OWEB has in the past simply lived off of Measure $76, and in the last few years, the state legislature has offered you opportunities to take on additional responsibilities. And it is really important for the director to recognize that with those responsibilities comes costs to the agency. And so it will be important to make sure that someone is capable of advocating for the agency should additional programs happen. I want to recognize the possibility of additional federal grants and that linkage. So having that kind of leadership will be important. And the last thing is I will certainly agree with Mr. Mall's comment about cross-agency collaboration. And thanks for all the work that you do on behalf of Oregon.
Thank you, Peggy. Is there any other hands up? I don't want to miss anyone if they want the opportunity to share their thoughts with us. Kaylin, and then Russ. Great, thank you.
Hello, can you see me, hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. I'll keep this really brief. First, really welcome this opportunity to come together. I've been eagerly tracking the recruitments for Water Resources Department Director, ODF&W's Director, and now we have OWEB also seeking a director. Like, what an exciting time for our state, and also a huge responsibility for this next hire. So I want to echo comments that Peggy and Joe both delivered around. A thing that came to mind to me as they were speaking was the reward for good work is more work. And I think that everyone has realized that OWEB is so good about giving money out and processing it. And so being an advocate for the base programs and for the staff who are needed to get those giant piles of dollars out the door is going to be crucial for this next director. There is unprecedented federal money that is out there that we desperately need to be pulling down onto Oregon soil and water. And so I will echo the need for a leader, a courageous leader, a person who's going to advocate for their program staff, and who is an excellent partner for the sister agencies, because this work doesn't get done without partnerships across the state. So that's all I have, and thanks.
Thank you, Kaylin. Russ Hoflick.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, how you doing, everybody? I just wanted to thank you, Jeff, for bringing this conversation together with the OWEB board, and it's an exciting time of transition. And I just wanted to emphasize some of the points raised by the people who have spoke previously are right on. I just am so appreciative of the work that the previous leadership of the board and the staff has done to bring in additional federal partners, other state partners, cross-agency collaboration. That is going to be so critical out into the future. I think back to in historic context of OWEB in the early days of Measure 66 and 76, but the direct relationship to the congressional members to be able to get direct federal matches is going to be absolutely vital as we move forward. Getting direct appropriations that are outside even some of the agencies, but directly a priority of Congress is certainly within the realm of possibility, particularly as it relates to tribal priorities out into the future, as well as some of the newer priorities coming in on direct appropriations associated with climate and water. I also believe that the next director has to have knowledge about the rising growth around the nation of the federal relationships and private relationships with nonprofits, the foundations that are driving conservation and donating at significant scales at this point in time is really a great opportunity for the next director. So, Jeff, I look forward to your efforts on behalf of the governor to find the next director. If there's anything I could do to help in the context of the history of Measure 66 and 76, you could count on me. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Great to hear from you. Is there anyone else here? Well, we sure appreciate the public comment and those of you that joined us to listen in. So thank you very much. I'll pass this to my co-chair, Barbara.
Thank you, co-chair McAllister. So the next agenda item is I'm going to ask Courtney to introduce Jeff to us and the public, but I had a couple of questions about this next agenda item first. So Jeff, did you want me to manage the raised hands for this particular agenda item?
Sure.
Okay.
That's just fine.
Okay. And then I didn't see the hands for the public comment. So I didn't see any of that. So I'm wondering if Nicole, if that can change, please.
Are you asking, well, that was the attendees. Do you not see the attendees link on your? The
Okay,
raised
so I'm
hands
not.
will be for the panelists.
Gotcha. Perfect. That's all I need to know. Thank you. All right, Courtney, take it away, please.
Well, I'm not sure Jeff needs much introduction. I do want to point out one thing that Barbara pointed out to me when she was looking at attachment A. If you look at the 5th bullet down, you'll see there's a little asterisk near the word culture. Originally, when we were going back and forth with this with Jeff, the OWEB's culture statement was on this, but to keep it to one page, we removed the culture statement. So that's just what that asterisk is referring to. So just wanted to point that out if folks were like hunting around and looking for where that asterisk pointed to. And Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thanks all. For me, this is a really important meeting. It's something that this is the first time there's been an open recruitment for the director of the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. But it's been a litany of great directors, starting out with the first one and all the way through to the last one. I think that every one of them has reflected time in OWEB's evolution from the very beginning transition from GWEB and the infancy of the Watershed Council movement to a pretty sophisticated organization that has a lot of significance in delivering programs for the state and across a variety of constituencies that are just critical to the natural resource management approach that, frankly, the entire natural resource cabinet agencies rely upon and partner with and have come to accept as being an integrated piece of delivery of natural resource policy objectives for the state of Oregon. So certainly starting out this process, I know the governor feels that OWEB is a critical agency with a role to play that can't be underestimated or minimized in any respect when we're talking about where we want to head with natural resource policy. And I think one of the things we've begun to talk about at the Natural Resource Cabinet, and that will be coming to the board more to talk more about with every board and Natural Resource Commission in the 14 agency cabinet, is the importance of building resiliency across our natural and working landscapes to address the impacts of a changing climate. And the notion of how we build resiliency into our systems, into our policies, into our investments, and our programs is one of going to be one of the focal points for strategically aligning budgets and programs across the 14 agencies. And in the center of that, frankly, is OWEB, from my perspective, and the investments that you all are charged with making. So, going to all the way back to the roots of this agency and the why of OWEB. We spend a lot of time talking about the mechanics of how to get money on the ground and how to create accountability and how to put it in the right place. And then I know you all spend time talking about the what. What is it we should be doing? What should we be emphasizing? What are the trade-offs and the programs and the deliveries that we're being asked by multiple constituencies in a very activated legislature, and with federal opportunities. The what is there, but boy, the why of OWEB is a foundational pillar that I really want to make sure that is honored in this recruitment and is top of mind for this board going forward with a new director, because I think there needs to be time invested in talking about the roots of where OWEB started and the why it is important for OWEB to be engaged in different conversations. I think that from where we've been sitting, you know, all of the different challenges that you face and that question of what is it that should be emphasized and how to best characterize that is really the next evolution of this agency. And a lot of the comments that I just heard resonate with me in terms of being comfortable with the uncertainty and courageous about where we need to go and making some choices that are the definition of leadership, and not being timid about helping this board put a stake in the ground around what we're going to stand for in the context of where this agency began and how it can contribute to resilience, building resiliency on natural and working landscapes. That's what the governor's office is going to be looking for in this administration. And we'll be talking a lot more about that. But for me, that is one of the, if not the starting point for the recruitment. Similar to the other natural resource recruitments we've been doing, having the staff put together a list of desired attributes that they would like to see was a really important step. And I've met with the executive team alone once and with an all-staff meeting a couple of times, I think, right, Eric? We had 2 of those. I learned a lot, and it's been frankly a lot of fun to have those conversations. I think that what I would like to see is to make sure that you all have the opportunity to make adjustments to this attributes or comment on them as board members to provide input into the process. So the process to come on this is every agency is just a little different, but the starting point is the same. And we look to these desired attributes to help guide screening criteria, interview questions, frame the kind of messaging that I provide to the governor as we're presenting finalists for consideration. So it's a long list, but I was really impressed at the thoughtfulness of it that the staff put together. And we presented it to you in order to make sure that you could discuss it in this meeting in public in the context of some of what you just heard. And then do a follow-up if, as individual members, you have input into the list that you want to be reflected. If there's something that's way off on this, let's make sure that there's a discussion of that in the next 50 minutes, please, because I do think that's important. In terms of the process, then, we are very close to posting the announcement. So there will be about a month's recruitment with a closing date. When that closing date happens, we take the applications that have come in the door that meet minimum qualifications for a posted state position at a particular level in the executive branch hierarchy. And for those candidates that meet the minimum qualifications, then there is a screening committee that takes the attributes and the position description and creates screening criteria, if you will. And it's a pretty short list of screening criteria. And then there's a ranking process, and that screening committee individually, without discussion, ranks candidates according to the objective criteria. And that's a numeric scoring system that's done blind without talking to the candidates. It simply is based on resume and statement of interest and materials submitted in response to the announcement. And that is intended to winnow down the pool of qualified candidates into a pool of candidates that merit and participation in the investment that we'll make in the interview process. So we hope to get that, generally speaking, that pool down depending on the applicants. I've seen it go all the way down to 3, and I've seen it at Meg, I think the Water Resources Department, we're at 8 to start out after our winnowing process. So you never know. It's based on the strengths of the candidates and the diversity of the candidates as well. once we have our winnowed pool, then for this process, we will be setting up a stakeholder panel that will interview the pool as the next step in the process. And that'll be an online Zoom meeting with stakeholder engagement. I'll be working with staff and the chairs of our board to talk about the process for identifying a cross-section of stakeholders that are routinely engaged with the agency. Those interviews are relatively short, 30 minutes, time to meet the candidates, ask a few questions, get some feedback coming back. And then we dissect that with report outs from those stakeholder groups. That input will go directly from me into the next round of interviews, which is a panel from the governor's office and the state administrative structure. Department of Agriculture, I think we had a former director, we had the head of the Department of Administrative Services, a couple of senior folks from the governor's office. We will certainly in this process be including the governor's tribal policy advisor as part of the interview panel. And then we winnow that down to a candidate or a few candidates for the governor to interview. And she'll conduct her one-on-one interview with the candidate with me staffing her. And that results in a nomination. In this case, it'll go to the Senate for confirmation. So that's the process. I will promise you we will have at least one board member involved in the screening criteria and in the panel with the governor's office. And I'll come back to you about that. But this is in its final place, an appointment that's made by the governor. The OWEB board has that interesting space of being the policy setting board and the granting board, but the administrative oversight of the agency flows directly to the director of Department of Administrative Services in the governor's office and me. So it's a little bit different than you may see in the Fish and Wildlife Commission recruitment or the EQC recruitment because of that. Or Board of Forestry even, I think, is similar to the other two. So that's the process piece. And so I'm here to answer whatever questions you've got and to take whatever feedback you want, but I also want to make sure that you spend a little bit of time just pressure testing some of what you all are seeing in the desired attributes document.
All right, thank you, Jeff. So I'm just checking a time check. We are a hard stop at 3:30, correct?
I understand that to be the case.
Okay, I just want to do a time check. All right.
Stay till 6:30 if you want. I think I'm going to be stepping out at 3:30.
All right. So does anybody want to start with questions or questions about the process, comments on the attributes that the staff came up with? All right, Stephen, please.
Yeah, I had a look at these attributes, and I've done a lot of hiring of directors and things like that, and I think there's a lot of them, as you mentioned. There's 21 of them or so, and I think that they are that's good because you want to make sure you have a comprehensive. You don't want to miss anything, you know. But I think in terms of trying to set priorities, I don't know if you had 17 of these, is that good enough, or you had a lump of them here but missed a lump of them there. So I'm thinking of another way to organize this and try and think about what the very diverse needs are for this very important position. And what I come up with is a couple of overarching kinds of things. One is leadership quality, and there's a lot of things in here that fall under that, the actual leadership component of this, risk-taking and so forth. The partnership ability to deal with different agencies and the board and legislature and so forth, so something under partnership. There's a management component, which is extremely important. The fourth one is sort of what I'd call knowledge base, knowledge of the ecosystem, knowledge of budgets, that sort of skills. And then the fifth one might be something in the order of communication, which could probably fall into the partnership category. But if you think of leadership, partnership skills, management, knowledge base, and communications, and you might be able to categorize all of the things that we've listed as individual attributes under those major categories, and let's see if there's perhaps another major category that we might have missed.
Thank you, Stephen.
Organizational
Kelly?
structure.
Oops, go ahead,
always
Jeff, go ahead.
helpful. I mean, I'm a firm believer in organizational structure, and that's a good synthesis of what I see in those attributes.
Thank you. Kelly, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Barbara. Yeah, I thought that the attribute table was very helpful. Thank you to the staff for putting that together. A couple of things that I thought about were commitment to outreach to all Oregonians and all parts of the state. I think we want to make sure that we're being really inclusive and just putting some language in there because we've been working really hard, especially within the DEI committee on that. So somehow capturing that, as well as commitment to partnership diversification and outreach to non-traditional partners. The board's been working really hard on that. Staff's been working really hard on that. I know Lisa and Stephanie have been working really hard and meeting with non-traditional partners to kind of broaden OWEB's reach there. So I think somehow reflecting that in this would be helpful as well. And then, Jeff, I just had a question about the process. So I know you said that the governor's tribal policy advisor will be sitting in on the interviews. And I know that you said that there is going to be a stakeholder panel, but is there going to be any opportunity for tribal governments to engage in interviewing the candidates or being a part of that process?
I can tell you what we're doing in 2 other recruitments, and that is in addition to having the tribal policy advisor participate in the interview process, we are doing outreach to the 9 tribes in advance of or during the interview process to just talk about what they want to see in a director. We have not set up separate interview processes for tribal governments, but we have been doing some direct outreach and conversation with individual tribes to hear directly about their interaction with agencies and their perspective on the leadership capabilities and the kind of director that they feel that an agency needs at this point in time. I would expect that to happen as part of this recruitment as well. We're not using a recruitment agency, independent recruitment consulting firm on this one, so haven't quite figured out how we're going to staff that on this round, but that's the expectation I have.
Thank you.
And I will say one of the ways we've accomplished that in one of the recruitments right now is Patrick Flanagan from the Legislative Commission for Indian Services has been helping us and has stepped in, and we've used that as a forum also.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Liz, you're up next.
Hey, thank you. Everyone's a little fuzzy. For some reason, I decided that today was the day I was going to get my eyes dilated for my annual eye exam. So if I don't recognize you or read my own.
We could all take off our glasses, Liz, and then we'd all do the same stuff.
Yeah, so be it. Okay, I had some reflections on the attributes, and they were really helpful to read and to see and gather my thoughts about it. And I'm sort of reflected back to our strategic plan for our last meeting, in which we named some things that we want to go forward with, as we've evolved from the last strategic plan. So on that second bullet about passionate about conservation and restoration, I think that might be a place that we continue that with passionate conservation and restoration on both natural and working landscapes, because I think that that is what OWEB does really, really well. And that's a hard thing to land. But just from my past year on here, you know, some people really struggle with it. Some departments really struggle with it. And for some reason, you hold that really well with the leadership and the staff and the board. So however that can be continued and just reminded, I think that could go there, or it could go other places too, but that's where it just popped up for me. The other thing that we talked about on the strategic plan is that learning organization. And I think what Joe said earlier in a comment really resonated to me. And this really changing climate environment we're in, there's a lot of unknowns. And so I think it's going to be important to kind of see a leader that can hold that learning organization, because that is both risk and failure, and that how you hold failure and not get stuck in it and keep moving onto the next piece that we need to know, I think is important. And in that, I would, you know, we want to rely on our science, but in that somehow weigh in on the traditional indigenous knowledge where it's appropriate. So those are just a few things that I reflected on as I went through the characteristics. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Hey, Eric, I'm assuming that you all are taking notes and incorporating the comments to be reflected back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're taking
I've got-
copious notes.
Yep,
Good.
we've got notes, Jeff. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Meg, please.
Thank you, Barbara. I thought that the comments that we heard from our partners today was really helpful and and very succinct, and I really agreed with a lot of what we heard. I also think that I was really impressed with the work that the staff did, putting together the list of attributes and the management approach that they would like to see in their new new director. When I read the list of attributes, I was really struck by the reference to a steady leader the use of the word restore to agency culture. And I thought about, you know, what did the staff mean by that? And maybe I'm thinking it has to do with the expanded job that OWEB has gotten over the last several years, that many additional tasks. And I guess I see this as and listening to you, Jeff, about how the governor sees OWEB kind of being in the center of the natural resource efforts across the landscape, and whether you know, we really need to be prepared for, I don't want to say rethinking the agency mission, because, or maybe a broadening agency mission, and a leader that is ready to take that on. You know, I think our board tendency has been to worry about this, of course, because, you know, you want the resources and the staffing to come along with the work that needs to be done. But I think if what we see is a broader future, a broader mission in OWEB's future, or a differently defined mission, then maybe we need a director who is ready to be able to work with that and manage it. And I guess I'm not really sure what the answer to that is. Are we going for a broader future, or are we not? And that to me would have a lot to say about what kind of leader we're looking for. I do want to say also that I really, my colleague from the Water Resources Commission, Joe Mall, made some comments that I strongly agree with in terms of what we might be looking for in agency leadership, courage in the face of challenging legislative environment, getting the kind of risk reward balance right, not erring too much on the side of being concerned about risk, and maybe being able to live with a little more uncertainty in the interest of making something good happen without the certainty about how things are going to turn out. So those are my thoughts. And I really appreciate hearing from everybody on this, the staff and public comment. And Jeff, thanks.
And if I might, because it might be that you came darn close to asking a question of me.
I guess I did. Thank you.
I think my remarks were actually when I think about resiliency of natural and working landscapes, it is to me the anchor of the original mission of OWEB, and then multiple programs that have been handed to OWEB that satellite around that. And there's certainly management issues and discussion to be had about dilution of effort and resources. But I said what I said, thinking in the context that really OWEB serves as a center point around which an awful lot revolves, without expanding what you're about, but rather really focusing in on that core mission and delivering those core programs that really are the only, DEQ is not delivering those kind of programs. The regulatory agencies or the land management agencies have constraints that OWEB does not. So it's not necessarily about changing or expanding outward, but rather concentrating focus and maybe delivering it in ways that are addressing more of what we should be doing going forward than what has been done in the past. I don't know, but that doesn't necessarily mean a change in the compass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I'm just maybe getting some clarity, and maybe it's just not possible. I mean, legislature makes decisions and they decide where things are going to go, but getting some clarity about the expanded roles and whether we're going to be good with that or whether we're going to resist that or just live with it is probably
just
where I was good with that.
Put a stake in the ground without going further today. I think that's a real legitimate conversation that we all should be having. And frankly, our office is a little concerned about the disparate pressures placed on the little agency that could have OWEB.
Right.
All right. So time check. We have 10 minutes left and there's 7 more board members who want to say something. So
I don't have to leave at 3:30 if others don't.
Okay. All right, Mark, please.
Okay, thank you. And Jeff, thanks for bringing this up. Thanks for listening. We have an exceptionally good agency, as evidenced by our 2 recent directors that have moved on into higher level positions. One, a supervisor of a national forest, and of course, the new Department of Ag director. That says a lot about the leadership that OWEB has garnered. My soundbite is find the best fit for the agency. We have a very good reputation with the legislature. We have a very good reputation with our interest groups. And so I zoom more in on the person, the best fit for the person. And just rapid fire through these quickly. They would need to know their strengths and weakness, deal calmly with stress, believe the future will be better than the past, deals with change easily, sets measurable goals when they have a project. And then others say that the leaders understand and are sensitive to them. Others say that they resolve conflicts. Others say they build and maintain relationships. And that's a huge point for me, is the relationships that we have with our groups out there, our interest groups. Others say that the leader inspires them. Others say that they're a team player. And others say that they help develop their abilities. If we can find somebody that has those attributes, that's the best fit for the agency. So I wish you the best of luck. I'm sure you'll find the best candidate that's a good fit for us.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, Jamie, please.
Well, first of all, Jeff, our thanks to the governor for involving the board in this process and staff as well. And also really appreciate the perspective you laid out and the approach you're taking to determine who's going to be the steward for OWEB and our watersheds. So I liked Steve's thought of like the big bullet points and the 4 I thought of, but I'll go back to them to individually, but a sense of vision, a strong commitment to OWEB's mission, relationships, exactly what Mark said, and I've got thoughts there. And then of course, leadership and leadership experience. So on the sense of vision, it's the ability to see some of the overarching impacts of our changing climate and understanding the potential impacts of our on the ground work in building resiliency in natural resources. So tying in very much to what you were saying originally. That does involve courage. I really appreciate that word coming up. So it's a willingness to be bold when new ideas or new ways of seeing or new ways of approaching the work that we need to do is needed. And frankly, not having a fear of failing. I think the ability to fall forward and to learn and engage, to be able to meet the urgent challenge we're facing around climate, but we have this urgent challenge without, we're uncertain on solutions. And so that ability to grapple with that, I think, is really important. I think the comment that's been made about ability to lean into and seek new funding, creative opportunities, of course, those that will include the resources to help support our team. So it's not taking on more work with the same staffing, but would have the resources to provide the staffing support needed when we take on those. And so again, that new appropriations or funding, make sure there's sufficient funding for program administration. In terms of the commitment to OWEB's mission, experience with natural resources, with climate, with water, and with equity issues. So the understanding of our work from the brass tacks of grant making and grant management and financial accountability, and the understanding of the controlling authorities. So that legislation is important. I don't think someone needs to have known every detail of it, because a good leader will be able to learn that. But to make sure that the general understanding or even the passion about conservation and restoration, and really an understanding of the complexity of natural resource issues, but also I think a deep respect for the diversity of our state and commitment to engaging both traditional and non-traditional partners. We're talking about that a lot in our strategic planning. The relationship piece is key. It's what OWEB does so well, but it's that commitment to maintaining and growing the strong relationships, of course, with the governor's office, with our sister state and federal agencies, with tribal nations, current partners with the state, but also expanding relationships to non-traditional partners. I would hope there would be an understanding of intergovernmental relationship with tribes and knowledge of tribal partnerships, and that government to government relationship, I think, is going to be really key. And we're focusing on that a lot recently, especially in OWEB, and trying to bring ourselves to that next level. And a deep understanding of DEI issues to ensure that we expand into truly meaningful relationships with diverse and underserved communities so that we're better serving all Oregonians. And then on leadership experience, managing effective teams, collaborating again with state and federal agencies, but it's really supporting our team. We have a phenomenal team, so supporting a healthy and functional OWEB team, experience advocating on behalf of the agency to multiple audiences, the legislature, our sister agencies, our local partners, that creative problem-solving piece. And then also, again, that ability to be creative and lead into new opportunities while managing reasonable demands on our team, I think are all really key. But thank you again for the opportunity to weigh in.
Thanks,
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you. Bruce.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Thank you. I'm on the phone. I would echo the issues that have been brought up by my colleagues. I will make a comment regarding the very thoughtful attributes from staff that I have a slight concern that there seemed to be an emphasis on OWEB-centric knowledge. And I think we have to be careful that if we rely too much on OWEB-centric knowledge, then we might tilt selection process internally, overbalance it for an internal selection. That was my only concern, and I thought that overall it was a great document. I had 3 nuts and bolts attributes that I think are great for any executive manager. One, we have to have a person who can place principle over personality, and that's often a challenge. It's been said, and I agree, that we need an executive director who is mission-oriented and also results-oriented. So those are nuts and bolts. Now, in experience, I think we should give credit for somebody with experience in crisis management, because we're either in a crisis or we're going to be in a crisis at some point on something. Credit for somebody with experience in personnel and staffing. We have a highly professional and accomplished staff, and with openings and movement of people and selecting the right people for the right jobs, that is a huge challenge and opportunity for any executive director. We talk a lot about our spending plan budgeting and emphasize that, but we also would like to have an executive director who is experienced with operational budgeting and how to deal with what is always a conflict or a challenge in OWEB with a shortage of operational funds to manage a larger spending plan. And the last is any experience that on working for DEI and specifically environmental justice. I think it's a huge plus to any prospective candidate. Thanks.
Thanks, Bruce. I think as a core capacity of any agency director, in my experience, that's going to be successful, the capacity to put principle over personality is a cornerstone of success. It's what makes that job so hard for every one of our directors in the cabinet.
All right, Liza Jane, you're up next.
Thank you. I'd just like to express appreciation for the staff for putting this together. It's thoughtful. I know it was a lot of work and conversations that you did a really good job that helps us. From my own perspective, what I didn't see, which I don't really have the words, but I think you'll understand when I say someone who understands all of Oregon. We can easily say serves all Oregonians. But the reality is, the agencies in Salem, a lot of our agency representatives live in the Willamette Valley. Central Oregon isn't Eastern Oregon. And so coming from Eastern Oregon, it's a little fiery out here. Wednesday, we're going to have our commissioners consider the greater Idaho situation. I think there's 13 counties now. And the reason behind that is they don't feel represented. They don't feel included. And a lot of that is, I believe, in the language. So I would ask you, as you're interviewing people, do they have language that that shows an understanding of the rural culture of Eastern Oregon, of agriculture, of working lands? It's a huge part of what we do and who we work with. And the relationship is fragile currently, and there's a great opportunity to really create some bridges here in who leads us and really does lead the entire state. So thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Chris, please.
Thanks, Barbara, and thanks, Jeff, for the opportunity to share some thoughts here. Echoing what some others have said, great job by staff pulling together this list of draft attributes. Not a lot I can add beyond what has already been provided today. I think we're really filling in any gaps, as small as they were. The two comments I will put forth, though, and this echoes a little bit of what I heard from Jamie and Liza Jane just now, and Joe Mall as well, and that is the Oregon piece of the 10 or 11 bullets here at the top. I only see Oregon mentioned once, and I just wonder if you're looking at some of the other bullets like number 6 and 7 that reference knowledge and understanding of natural resource management and issues, if we could be more specific and say in Oregon or in the Pacific Northwest, given the uniqueness of our challenges and opportunities here. So that was the first comment. And then the second goes to the last couple bullets. There is, I like the one knowledgeable of tribal partners and government to government relationships. And then the last bullet, experience with legislators to be able to communicate what OWEB does. But I'm wondering if we could be more explicit about government experience, whether that's in state or federal government or local, as an attribute that could really be valuable for a top candidate for this job. So those are the two things. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Chris. All right, and our newest board member, Mark, please.
Now I'm
Mark Webb.
nervous. Thank you.
Hi, Mark. Good to
Don't
see
be
you.
nervous.
It's nice to see you. So 2 or 3 points. I do feel a little bit awkward because I've received OWEB funds. I've worked with OWEB staff, but I really don't understand the director's role. So if I misrepresent something here, I apologize. But to begin with, I really appreciated, as several people have said, the desire to recommended attributes. I think anybody who actually exhibits those is going to be fantastic. It's a pretty remarkable set. I did want to emphasize 2 or 3 different things just based on my work in Grant County, so Eastern Oregon, as well as with Forest Collaboratives. To begin with, I just think it's incredibly important, not that the person's a scientist or sociologist, but our experience is that you need to both have best available science and know how to work with the social environment to get that science embedded in those people's mindsets and practices. And so somebody who is maybe not particularly good there, but appreciates that and will pursue that science social context, I think it's really been really critical for us. And I think it's really critical for an entity like OWEB. And then related to that, I just wanted to echo Joe, I think it's Molo, and Meg's comments. I appreciate that as the agency director, they're not going to be out doing things like building fence, which is what I'm used to, but some sort of practical or sort of social awareness of what it actually takes to do the work, I think will help them understand how best to move OWEB forward in terms of implementing practices, policies, and so on. So that kind of background or some ability to have it. And then the networking, I think, is really, really important. And this is why. And I've been checking. I don't see any Forest Service people here. I know that there are Forest Service people. So I'm going to use the Forest Service and my organization as an example. It's still the case that currently the Forest Service's budget at the national level is misaligned with the kind of work that needs to happen restoration-wise on public lands. And it's just really hard internal to an agency to have those kinds of those conversations, but they have to happen. And so when I heard Joe mention networking, that's what I immediately went to. I hope we can have an agency director that respects the different agency responsibilities and areas that they oversee, but can say, look, this is not working for what we need to happen. And this is why. How can we help you help us do better work on the ground? So that's the kind of networking ability that I would really appreciate and I think would really benefit OWEB, is that ability to say, we need this, we respect where you're coming from, we feel like some changes need to happen. How do we get better alignment? And I think maybe it's not as true at the state level, but I think there is still some misalignment between the various natural resource agencies and what they're tasked with doing, what the legislature statutorily allows them to do, and probably what they need to do. And so we need to have those conversations. And I think the OWEB director would be an excellent choice. And I think that particularly in the context where I'm supposed to be representing EQC, which is a regulatory agency, there just are times when, as well-intended as the regulations are, or as much sense as they made in the past, there's probably need for a change now, given the new context we're working in, new desired outcomes around resilience and the like. So I would hope that the OWEB, that the decision to hire a person would consider that kind of background and experience. And then last of all, and I speak as a landowner who has both contracted with OWEB funds through ODF and W and others, but also as a landowner that can be pretty prickly sometimes when the state wants to do stuff on our ground or they want it to do their way and not my way. So I get that. But I just can't emphasize enough that in my understanding, working landscapes remain central and critical to OWEB's work. And that's because as much ground as the Forest Service covers in the state, you're not going to get resilient watersheds, and you're not going to get the restoration of salmon runs and salmon health just by looking at Forest Service landscapes or even the purchased lands that OWEB often supports. For better or worse, you need the working landscapes, you need the people, and that means somebody that's sensitive to the challenges, the frustrations, the foibles of people like in Eastern Oregon, like me. And I'm just hoping that even if they don't agree with all of that, that they know how to engage there and talk with people like me and others who have these landscapes that are absolutely critical for doing what OWEB wants to do at scale. So those are some of the things I wanted to share.
Thanks, Mark. Good points.
All right, thank you, Mark. Well, what's nice about going last is everybody said everything I wanted to say, but I do have a few things. So we are the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board, and watershed does include urban. So I would like to see somebody comfortable on a large landscape, but also somebody comfortable with in the urban setting. And so is this going to be a national search? I guess I didn't hear that anywhere.
It certainly will be posted and put in venues where it'll be capable of drawing certainly regional attention. And lately we've been, I think we've been seeing a lot of national crossover where that didn't used to happen, but it is happening now. Okay,
thank you. And then I would really like to see somebody comfortable running a board. We have the largest board in the state, and there's a lot. We all have a lot to say. We're all really passionate about Oregon. So I think somebody who's comfortable running a large board will be important. And one of my last statements was I've sat on a lot of interview panels at the state level through DAS. And one of the last few rounds we actually did at our local level at Yamhill Saltwater Conservation District, we redacted all the names. And I have to tell you, that was a game changer for me when I was reading applications. So I don't know if it's possible or not. It was mind-blowing to me, 20 years of doing interviews, and I've never had that done. So I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but if it can be done, it is a fascinating process.
That's interesting.
It changed everything for me. So yeah, not knowing names, just especially of us who are all over the state, we might know some of the applicants, and it would be nice not to actually have a name attached to the application. So, because it can give you a bit of a bias.
Yes, it can.
All right, I think that is all I have. And I'm not seeing any more hands. So Liza Jane, I'm gonna pass it to you or Jeff, if you have any closing comments before Liza Jane closes the meeting.
I don't have any closing comments other than I think we should commit to have one more meeting before this process gets to the governor's interviews. And it may not be to discuss candidates, but it may be that we can refine some questions that we have that have come up from the interview process in order to get some input.
Okay, great. Barbara, that sounds like the show The Voice. The Voice, you ever seen that one? No, can't hear me? She can't hear me, that's okay.
No, tell me about The Voice.
It's not important. You just
okay.
But I love seeing everyone here. We have a fantastic board, and I'm sure that Jeff and your crew will get us the very best director. So we can keep doing good work. And thank you everyone for joining us on this out of sync day for our meeting. And it's important. And Jeff, thank you very much for including us. And with that, I'll adjourn our meeting today. Thank you.
Thanks for the time.